Good day, sir.
Oh, darling, your light's much better.
How are you?
Want to get some more light. The camera on this laptop is shocking. It's actually worse than on the iPhone.
I feel like I'm a bit close to mine.
You are quite close.
Back it up. There you go. That's better. There you go.
Perfect. Freshly shaved, ready for London. Look at that. Look at that skin fade. You are ready for the.
Mate, you mean my hair, not my face. I'm always shaving my face, but yeah, I had a haircut today. It's not quite a skin fade, but
I don't really know what a skin fade is, but that looks like it is one.
a skin fade is when it's literally like fresh shaven at the bottom.
Right. Gotcha.
It's not quite there.
Right. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the waiting room.
And I've got the visualization ready to go. Let me check. I can share screen. I can. I'll just share now just to make sure we can do it. Host disabled screen sharing.
I have not.
Host disabled attendee screen sharing. So maybe I need to be a host.
Hang on. More. So I can make you the host. That will then disable my host privileges, which only means you're going to need to be letting people in because I won't be able to see them in the waiting room.
You can make me host after you've admitted people, or I need to admit people. I don't know. Whatever you think. Host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Let me see if I can change that.
We've got a minute or two. No big panic. There has been a few last minutes.
Yeah, I saw it's
just another one's just popped in now from Dimbleby.
Oh, Dimbleby.
Very last minute.
So my name is Fino Wino, just so you know, in case you're trying to communicate with that person, they're not responding. That's why it's me.
Yeah. I clocked it. I saw the email. So he's called Chardonnay, and he's called South Africa and France. South Africa for the Kissler. So he did call Chardonnay. He's then called GSM Blend. France on the first one, which is no, and South Africa on the second one, gone for Badenholst, which is no, because it's not that one. And then the third one, he's gone Bordeaux Blend over Mira. Do we give Bordeaux Blend? Is there any blend in the cab, Frank?
No, it's 100% cab.
No.
Both.
No. And he's gone France Bordeaux Blend. There we go. Stimbleby's in. Refresh the visualization. We've got one more person in our little table, which is good. And I'll try and share my screen now if you change any settings.
I haven't figured out how to do it. I'll admit all, and then I will make you the host. And then just keep an eye out for any late arrivals.
Okay, it just pops up. Does it? I've never hosted Zoom, but I guess it just pops up and says that someone's waiting, and you'll admit them.
Yeah, it's on it'll be, if you click on where it says participants at the bottom, it'll bring up a thing on the right hand side of your screen, and you'll just be able to admit or remove people.
Okay.
Right. Oh, hang on. Allow participants to rename start video. No. Actually, let me see if I allow you to start video. If that. Multiple participants can share simultaneously. See if you can do it now.
Roger. Cool. Let me just quickly share. So that's coming through, yeah?
Yeah. It has started. Yeah. Cool. All right. If you now stop doing that, I'm going to admit everyone. Right. Ready?
Yeah.
We're going live. Good evening, everyone. Apologies for letting you in a little bit late. We were still collating some of the latest submissions and just getting them into the visualization. We'll be showing you very soon. We've got one more there, one more arrival joining. So we are just about ready to go. And whilst I sort of had an introduction planned, which was going to reveal in advance whether South Africa had been successful or not. Now I don't know, because we've had so many submissions in the last half hour, it has changed things completely with regards to which wines were actually bettering the other, whether South Africa had defeated its rest of the world rivals. So we will find that out now at the end, because I don't know anymore. But there we go. So the reason I wanted to do this tasting, first of all, is because I have been remonstrating to anyone that will listen that I think South African wine offers essentially some of the best value in the world, and value can be misconstrued, because you can have someone who say I want a good value bottle of wine, meaning I want to spend £6 or £7, but you can also have value at something that costs 50 but tastes like it could cost 100, which is what we're trying to look at today. So you've got 3 South African wines in your pouches against 3 wines from somewhere else in the world. All of the South African wines are cheaper. One of them is exactly half the retail price of its competitor. The others are, one's almost half and the other one's about 75%, 75% of the price. So they're all significantly cheaper, but they're all made from the same grape or the same blend. And so let's find out whether the South African wines were scored better than their rest of the world peers. Robbie is going to share his screen, and we're first of all going to look at the wines in order and what they were scored as and what people thought they were. So Robbie, hit it.
Sounds good. Great to be here tonight. I recognize a lot of faces. For those who don't know me, my name's Robbie. Good to be hosting this with Daniel, and a delight to share these wines with you guys. So Blind Faith is my brainchild, and the wines you received in pouch were distributed via us here at Blind Faith. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And that should take over the presentation. And we're going to jump here to the first wine. So this is the first wine, and as Daniel said, we're going to take a brief look at what people called it as, and then we're going to reveal what the wine is. So here's very simple visualization. You can see everyone who submitted, what country they thought the wine originates from, what variety was used to produce the wine, and some people have gone ahead and taken a guess at the producer, if they know the Museum Wines portfolio that well, and the all-important score as well, and where it averages out. So this is wine number 1, the first of 2 whites, a pairing of 2 whites, and you can see the majority there calling Chardonnay. Chardonnay lightly oaked, someone has gone as far as to say. 2 people calling Chenin, and I could kind of get that Chenin. Definitely, there was some citrus there. Definitely, I can also get the Chardonnay calls, which you can see a lot of people have called that, and Viognier. So a pretty tight range in terms of what people have called. And then if we take a look at the country, I think the majority there in South Africa, just about, and then a handful of other people there in France, but no one swaying any further than South Africa or France. And then the scores. Most people have this pretty damn high, 2 9s, 3 9s, with an average of 7.5. And I think I can reveal, unless Daniel, you got anything else to add at this?
Hold fire. Hold fire. Go ahead. So I just wanted to say, I'm going to do a pre-reveal on this one before you click to let everyone know what it is. So this is the most expensive wine in the tasting.
What?
With a retail price of £120 per bottle.
Things.
So that's going to tell you that it's not South African, as most people thought it was. It's also not French. In fact,
Margaret River.
No, not Australian either.
America, California.
This producer have been championing single site terroir-driven expressions of Chardonnay since their inception in 1978, using only one single clone of Chardonnay. So there are over 30 different clones of Chardonnay used around the world. Most producers will use several different ones, and sometimes we'll blend them together. But these guys only use a single clone for any of their Chardonnay single site wines. Now, does that information allow anyone to hazard a guess at the producer before Robbie reveals?
Is this one of your Kisslers, Dan?
Is one of the Kisslers John Dimbleby? So this is Kistler Le Noisetière, which is a Sonoma Coast Chardonnay. And it's £120 a bottle on our shelves. So without further ado, I think we should find out if the South African Chardonnay, as we know now it will be a Chardonnay, has been deemed to be better than the £120 Kistler. The next wine, I will actually say about 7 hours ago, was the highest rated wine of the 6. But the last time I checked, that had changed. So I don't know what it is going to be now. I don't know if it will be still be beating the Kistler as it was earlier. So let's find out.
I guess eyes peeled in the bottom right hand side. So all of these pages will flick through, will have the exact same layout. So this scored 7.55 on average, with 3 9s and not many low scores. And then if we flip over to the South African wine, South African Chardonnay scored at 7.55. So we're looking at a head-to-head after the first test series, going into the second test series. You can see, unsurprisingly, if people call Chardonnay on the first one, they're called Chardonnay here on this one. So not a huge amount there to break things up. I don't know if anyone wants to try and take a guess at what wine this was.
Well, we know it's South African, so it is one of our South African Chardonnays. I'm sure there's a few people on the call who could whittle it down.
Holden Mans?
It's not Holden Mans.
Nope.
I'll give you a further clue. It is exactly half the price of the Kistler, 60 quid a bottle.
I actually had Kistler down for this and I crossed it out.
Did you? There you go.
Right, Robbie, I think let's reveal.
Looking at the Uvamira single tree, and I think it's 17, is it, Daniel?
2017, 18. Yeah. What did you do
17.
to that bottle before you took the picture?
Yeah, it got butchered. It was a frantic evening of pouring, and then it's gone into a case and it's got butchered. I think actually it looks quite good. I mean, don't tell the guys over at Uvamira to change their label design too quickly, but yeah, that's what happened. Apologies.
So Uvamira, the single tree Chardonnay, is one of Uvamira's 2 single vineyard. So Kistler is single site, not always single vineyard. But Uvamira is single vineyard, named so because it has a single tree within the single vineyard. They make 3 Chardonnays. The Mira, which is an estate Chardonnay, which is 30 quid a bottle. They make about 20,000 bottles a year. Then there's a single tree, which has the most new oak, about 60% new oak. 1,800 bottles produced a year, whereas the Kistler is about 15,000. So even though Kistler is double the price, there are 10 times as many bottles in existence each year. Obviously changes slightly per vintage, but it is about 10 times as many produced, even though This is half the price. So then again, shows us what good value South African wine is. With only 1,800 bottles produced, we only get an allocation of 120 bottles into the UK. So just think about how many people in the UK will ever get to try this wine if there's only 120 bottles. But about 20 people have tried it tonight for this tasting because of the brilliant pouch system that Robbie concocted. So that's Uvumera, 1,800 bottles produced, 60% new oak. There is another above it, which some of you will have tasted if you joined us for the extravaganza, fine wine extravaganza, which is just called Uvumera Chardonnay, which is really, really confusing when you're trying to figure out what's what on a stock spreadsheet. You've got the Mira Chardonnay, single tree Chardonnay, and then just Chardonnay. That one, they make even less, 1,200 bottles, and that has the least new oak. It's about 30%, I believe, new oak on the top wine. This, I think that I'm actually drinking the Kistler next to the single tree now. The single tree, I think, is, even though it's only 2017, it's the new oak is still quite noticeable. I think it hasn't integrated completely. I think it will integrate further and it will get better. But I think this is starting to drink now, and we'll drink over the next 10 years. The top wine, the Chardonnay, isn't ready yet. That I think will start drinking in about 5 years. So this is the one to buy and drink now. The other one is the one to buy and drink when you run out of this. So there we go. A dead set for the first round. But I think the Uvumera has done incredibly well, considering that it is half the money.
It's a three-test series, so we'll see how we unfold from here.
Best of three. Right. The next.
Should we skip on, or would you like any input? We'll carry on. Let's push on. So we move now into the next pair. Same format, same visualization. So we're looking at the second pair. So wine number 3 here. We've got a very split. I mean, not many people going outside of South Africa or France here again. So we're looking at 5 people in South Africa, 5 people in France, 1 person in the USA. Varietal wise, we're looking at Cab Sav, and if you include the Bordeaux blend in there as well, it definitely throws it towards Cabernet there. 1 Cab Franc, GSM blend, Grenache, with a few producer calls as well, and a slightly lower score on this than the 2 others which we've seen. So the lowest score so far at 7.27. So that's how we're looking for wine number 3. For me, I tasted all of these wines. I can, and I've seen so many submissions now, so many hundreds of submissions of people guessing wine blind. So it's not a surprise to me we're seeing their kind of medium to full bodied wines. Is that for sure? And I thought it was very high in tannin and very high in acid. So I'm not surprised there to see wines which kind of share that in Cab Franc, Cab Sav, Grenache as well. So yeah, that's how we're falling. Daniel, I don't know if you've got anything to add before we reveal.
No, I don't think so. I think I've sort of seen Jeff in the chat box who said he thought this one was difficult. It is. It is difficult. I don't think it's a particularly typical example of this blend or style, and I can see where some of the incorrect guesses, such as Syrah and Grenache, have come from. Let's find out what it is, Robbie.
And then Daniel, I commented to you. I thought this one was tasting quite young. I think, which it can often make it harder. You age your wine too long, it becomes very difficult to call because they all head in develop a lot of maturity. And taste the wine too young is also very difficult to call. I thought this was tasting quite young, which makes sense as well with that divided call. But we were in fact looking at a Bordeaux blend, Prisoner of War, POW.
See the reactions of people who have bought and enjoyed this wine recently.
2 weeks ago.
Andrew and John Dimbleby. So yes, Bordeaux blend. I actually haven't. I'm just going to try it now. I've just finished off the whites. I've not tried it from pouch because I think this is really, really approachable. And Robbie found it to be drinking quite young. Yeah, I know what you mean from the aroma, Robbie. It's what I think we have here is an example of what happens when a winemaker takes a somewhat minimal intervention approach. So this is bottled, unfined, unfiltered, and you can get some bottle variation. So because I ordered this is one of the wines I drink quite a lot at home. It's £19.99. Obviously, I don't pay that for it because I get special executive discounts. But that means it's a good sort of everyday wine for myself. And I always find it to be, it's 2016 vintage, an approachable vintage, and I do find it to be an approachable wine. But just smelling it, it smells more austere. This is actually, it's only been out of the fridge for about an hour, which won't help. But it is quite austere compared to how I normally find it. But it is a Bordeaux blend of 75% Cabernet Sauvignon, 25% Merlot, aged for 36 months in barrel, which is why we're only now drinking the 2016. We do so well with this wine. We bought every single bottle of the 2016 that Natafile had left, which was about 600 bottles, which landed in June this year. I think we've got about 200 left, which gives you an idea of how quickly we do sell through it. They are now onto the 17 in South Africa, which has just been released this year. So the 17 released in 2021. You probably won't be able to tell that it's had 3 years in barrel. And that's because it spends the first 12 months in a 300 litre old oak barrel. And then it spends the next 24 months in a 500 litre XKWV brandy barrel, similar to like a demi-muid that they would use in the Rhone Valley. And having a wine in a barrel of that size reduces the wine to barrel contact, the ratio of contact, which imparts less influence apart from texture and allowing the wine to mature. So you've got old brandy barrels, which are old oak, imparts less influence anyway, and then they're even bigger, so the wine is in less contact with them, so it reduces that influence even further, which is why I think you get that sort of almost the lighter Syrah Grenache characteristics as opposed to the traditional Cabernet that you might have expected from that sort of blend.
So Bordeaux blend from South Africa, paired with, what did the group think? I'm going to say about half the group had South Africa here, because half the group had South Africa on the first wine. Similar breakdown. Some people who jumped to Italy, actually. Italy, USA, no France calls at all. We were looking at a lower scoring, because we were 7.27 on the POW and 7.18 here. The lowest scoring, Chateau Gloria, a Spirit of Gloria, which, Daniel, I think you've been stocking for a number of years, and this one is quite popular in your range.
No, Robbie, you're very, very wrong. This is a brand new wine from Chateau Gloria. Esprit de Gloria 2018 is the very first release of this wine. They used to do, so it's owned by the Martin family, Chateau Gloria. They used to do another wine called Haute Bechervel Gloria, which was the sort of, it wasn't a true second wine of Gloria. It was a collaboration with Chateau Bechervel, both in Saint-Julien. they've now discontinued that wine. It's not made anymore. The last vintage that was made was 2016, and Chateau Gloria have replaced it with their what is going to be their true second wine, because it's only from their own estate fruit. This wine was actually the lowest scored in the whole tasting.
Yep.
For some while, I would imagine it still is, but it was even lower than the 7.18 that it is now. It was down to about 6.5 at one point today. And I think whoever Home Malone is, who's given it a 10, an enthusiastic 10, has dragged that score up back into the sevens. David Cole, were you by any chance the person that's called it as Los Espinos? David Cole has just commented on the chat group saying sorry to drag the score down, which suggests that maybe he was the person that gave it 3 out of 10.
Yes,
he was that person.
David Cole, my goodness. So to give you some context as to what David has called this as, and I do understand what David's saying. When I first had this wine, and I only had it quite recently, it was incredibly austere and reticent for 36 hours. I opened it Saturday morning and it didn't actually start to relax and cooperate with me until the Sunday evening. And when it did, it was sensational. 2018 Saint Julien obviously is going to be very, very young at the moment. But once it relaxed and kicked off its shoes, it was a joy to be in the company of. So I do understand the lower scores, and smelling it now because I put the POW down. Let's see if it's undrinkable.
Daniel, I am wondering, with what you've just said, whether Rohypnol would have helped.
Rohypnol always helps. Not if you give it to someone without their consent. That's naughty. You shouldn't do that. But when drinking very young Bordeaux, why not? It might help. It might help. So yeah, it's definitely drunk too soon. I didn't expect anyone to leave it in their glass for 36 hours to get to let it come to unwind. The reason I wanted to show it was because it's almost double the money of the POW. POW £20. This is 35. And I've always been saying about POW that it drinks like a £40 Saint Julien. And considering that it's just pipped the Saint Julien, I think that's about spot on. And also, I think the only other Saint Julien that we had in our range was Langlois Barton 2010, which was £95 a bottle, and I think would have been a slightly unfair comparison. So I think let's move on. Yes, POW, very good. Maybe better according to the group than the Esprit de Gloria, despite yet again being half the price, just about.
Sorry, Daniel, how much cab sav is in that one? Do you know?
Not precisely. I think it's comparable. I would say it's around 70 to 80% cab from Gloria. Gloria is typically quite cab heavy. I did actually try and find out, but being a Bordeaux, the information that they actually are willing to give you, other than the fact that it's a Bordeaux from Saint Julien, is actually very little. So not sure. I'll try and find out, but I reckon it's probably comparable. I don't think there's any Cab Franc in there. I think it is just Cab Merlot. So it's probably more or less the same blend as the POW.
Gloria as an estate have a planting of 65% cab. But that just reflects their planting, and as Daniel says, it's very difficult, especially vintage on vintage, to get exact blends of Bordeaux wines. But they're planted at 65%, 25% Merlot, 5% Cab Franc, 5% Petit Verdot.
No Merlot.
Yeah, 65 Cab, 25 Merlot.
Oh, sorry. I missed that bit.
No problem. No, we are at 1-0 for South Africa in our 3-test series.
So here we go, the finale. Come on, Robbie. Flip that slide.
Eyes on the bottom right. So we're looking at 8.45 for wine number 5. We're moving into the third pairing now. Wine number 5, overwhelmingly South African in terms of calls. And we're seeing some Bordeaux blends come out there. We're seeing some Cab Sav, Shiraz Merlot, quite similar to the last one, which I get as well. So I also think this showed as a full-bodied wine. So you're looking at all of those varieties there are pretty much all full-bodied. You could argue Syrah is maybe medium-bodied. The others there, maybe Merlot, medium plus body, but almost all of them there are full-bodied wines, which I thought is how this wine presented itself. South Africa overwhelmingly with France. So it's another one of those where everyone's thinking we're looking at South Africa versus France contest when we are in fact looking at South Africa versus rest of the world. So that's what we're looking at. You can see 2 10s there, 2 enthusiastic 10s. Home Alone and Von Ellen Leon with a 10. A lot of 9s there with a 6 dragging it down, but 8.45, very high scoring. I don't know if we've got any preamble here, Daniel.
We sort of. I was about to give some context, just very briefly, as to what David Cole had called the Esprit de Gloria as, which was Los Espinos Merlot from Chile. Los Espinos Merlot, which I very much doubt David Cole has ever had, because he's a man of very fine taste. Is what we sell to pubs and restaurants normally as their sort of house wine. We pay just over £5 for it, ex VAT, and then we sell it on for about £6.50. So that's the context of David Cole's call for the £35 Esprit de Gloria, was basically a £6, £5 Chilean Merlot. There we go. And David, he is belligerent in his belief that that's what it tasted like. I'm just finishing it now. I think it's a little bit better than that, David. I've got to be honest. I'm going to send you a bottle of Los Espinos Merlot and see what you rate that as. No preamble for this one, Robbie. No one has got the grape. Let's tell them what it is.
So we were looking at a Bordeaux grape. We weren't looking at a blend. It's a varietal wine. And people have called Cab Sav, which it's not. And people have called Merlot, which it's not. We are looking at 100% Cab Franc from our guy Holdenman's 2017 vintage from Magnum. So that's wine number 5 there at 8.45.
So there we have it. Holdenman's. That is a big score, and the lowest score, Rian, giving it 6, but he thought it was French Cabernet Sauvignon. Don't know how many 100% Cabernet Sauvignons there are from France. I think you get them in Waitrose or other supermarkets every so often from southern France at about $5.99. So I think 6 would have been quite generous if it was that. Then I think the next, then there's 1 7, a couple of 8s, and then we're into the 9s and 10s. So South Africa, most people got it as South African. From Magnum, 2017 vintage. We have stock of this in the normal size bottle also, which is £69.99. The Magnum, we've got still some 2016s, which are 125 a Magnum. We technically haven't released the Magnums of 17, so this is like a pre-release tasting you've been treated to. But once they go on the website, which I will probably do later today, just in case anyone wants to buy one, I'm going to try it, see how good it tastes from Magnum. When you have a wine from Magnum, they do age more slowly, because you've got the same size cork, same amount of air getting into the bottle, but double the amount of wine. So a Magnum or double Magnum, Imperial, whatever, is always going to age more slowly.
So that's what That's what an expensive Cabernet Franc from South Africa tastes like, and scored very, very well.
So this wine is it is the 3-time winner of the South African Cab Franc Challenge. So it is, and this vintage again has won this year. So it is highly regarded. So now we know that it's a Cabernet Franc, and the next wine, which I think we've just skipped on to, is also a Cabernet Franc.
And it's scored lower. So that's the first headline here. So we're looking at
significantly lower.
We're looking at a South African victory for the third pair and a South African victory for the series.
There we go. Totes lekker.
So big victory there. So where would you go for a Cabernet Franc in the rest of the world, I guess?
Is it? Does anyone think it's Chateau Cheval Blanc, which on occasion is 100% Cabernet Franc? You know, I mean, it is about £1,000 a bottle. So if we'd included it in a £60 tasting, I mean, Museum Wines would probably be in administration by now.
Yes.
So it's not Cheval Blanc. Where else could it be? Argentina does single varietal Cabernet Franc, as does quite a few American producers. Is it a Loire? Is it from the Loire? I don't know. Did anyone? No one thought it was Cabernet Franc, so I think
if it was a Loire Cab Franc, I don't think we'd see Merlot calls and Cab Sav calls. No. I think you'd see medium-bodied calls. It's definitely from a hotter climate, which is why I think most people have gone towards Bordeaux.
I'm gonna pick an audience member, like we're at the pantomime, and take them by the hand and say, "Come on stage with me, sir." John Dimbleby, you know our range pretty well.
Yeah.
Pick and it's a wine that has been on your hit list for a while. You have yet to make good on your threat to come in and buy a bottle.
Is this your little Tuscan gem, Dan?
Yes.
This was Scipio.
Rich Priddle. Scipio.
Which has been on my hit list for a while as well.
Scipio.
Which vintage was it, Dan?
Tenuta Sette Cieli is this is the 2016, which was released earlier this year, I think. I don't really know what's happened in the last 18 months. It could have been towards the end of last year, or it was earlier this year, but it was recently. It is the most recent release of Scipio, which is 100% Cabernet Franc from Bulgari. Scipio, from Bulgari, but not labeled as Bulgari because they're not allowed to be. Reason being is that Tenuta Sette Cieli are located the other side of the woods, which border the original Sassicaia vineyard. And when Sassicaia Bulgari DOC, the only winery in the world to have its own DOC, was designated, they thought no one's going to burrow through the woods and to get to that weird bit of land the other side. So what's the point in designating that as part of Bulgari? We'll just ignore that. But someone did. Tenuta Sette Cieli carved a path through the woods to get to the terroir, the other side of it, and planted Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Malbec as well, I think, which is used in their other wine, Indico. So Indico is more of a super Tuscan blend. Sangiovese, is there Sangiovese in it? Not sure, can't remember. Don't worry, we're not drinking that wine. Scipio is 100% Cabernet Franc. It's £95 a bottle. I haven't tried it. I haven't tried it since I tried my sample bottle, which I had before we took our allocation of this and the Indico. So I'm going to try it again now. I remember it being, and the reason I wanted it to be served last after the hold of my hands is because it was quite big. It's 15% alcohol, Whereas I think the Holderman's is actually less, it's 14.5 in this vintage. Holderman's has been 15% in previous vintages, but the 17 is 14.5. I think, Robbie, if you have the Magnum to hand.
I do not. I would hazard a guess this is the wine that took most people to Bordeaux, though, or Cab Sav. It's very big, very polished. I didn't get a huge amount of Tuscan character myself. I thought it was a big, strapping, muscular, Bordeaux. I could totally get that why people have gone there. I think this wine would have taken people there more than the Holden Mans, I'd say.
Yeah, the Holden Mans has the tobacco leafy, very, very slight, very well managed bit of capsicum green pepper-ness in it. I love Cabernet Franc, and I love seriously good, expensive Cabernet Franc. What I can't stand is when you just get an overwhelm of green pepper and often underripe green pepper. It's horrible. No one wants that in their glass. Also, I quite like raw lamb, not to eat, but as a wine characteristic, which you get often in Brunello or Sangiovese, Tuscan Sangiovese. But the most recent release of Hochar by Chateau Moussard, I thought tasted like a raw lamb smoothie, which was disgusting. This, however, so yes, I absolutely see where you're going with this, Robbie. The Holden Mans, I think, is almost a truer expression of Cabernet Franc.
Oh yeah.
Whereas the Scipio, I get why people would go more towards Cab Sav. I would probably go more towards Cab Sav. It's austere. It's got a lot of cassis to it.
Yep.
And I did see Anna and Paul trying to give Rian's score on the Holden Mans a pass almost by saying he's not normally a fan of big, bold reds. But I would hazard a guess that this is a bigger, bolder red than the Holden Mans Cab Franc, but he's given that a 9. He scored it even higher.
He loves Tuscans.
But he thought it was South African.
Yeah, okay.
He's not even here to defend himself, so let's leave him alone.
What vintage is this, Dan?
16.
16, Scipio. Which is well, they keep having them, but a dream vintage for Tuscany. 10 was a dream vintage. Then 15 was as well. 16 was another dream vintage. 17 not so good. 18 was better again. The South African Enigma. I think Rian should change his name on Vivino to the South African Enigma.
So this is our closing lineup as a reminder for everyone. Slightly, you see those wines slightly clearer there, including the vintages. We will send out a link to this visualization shortly after the call, because some people couldn't make this call. We had over 20 people. I think we dispensed 21 packs of this, so people can check out this visualization and see the reveal on these wines. But look, we had a neck and neck Chardonnay round, 7.55 each. Slightly lower scoring on the Bordeaux blends, both tasting quite young. I think quite difficult to pin down.
Deep wine.
Frank's the highest.
So I mean, the rest of the world couldn't even get a consolidation goal.
I guess not. No, it's not. No, you average those out, and South Africa's going to win on aggregate scoring as well.
So there we go. There we have it. The results is that South African wine is better than any wine from anywhere else in the world. And on that bombshell, because I started to think I was sounding a bit like Jeremy Clarkson at that point, we should probably wrap up, because quite a few of us have got to swap over to Google Meets for the blind faith reveal. Robbie, do you know what those wines are yet, or are you gonna find out live and in person? You're not going to join us for the call.
Indeed.
We're looking forward to that reveal.
I'm not. I'm really, really not. Yeah, that's it. In
Bobby
15
and I
minutes.
actually, we tasted the pouches together, and that was it was actually really enjoyable for me to see him go through what we go through. Should have recorded that one. But before we sign off, does anyone have any questions? Anyone want to place a very large order at this time? Well, that's also welcome. Questions, queries, wonderings, anything before we wrap it up with the under the knowledge now that everyone knows South African wine is the best in the world.
Thanks for organising. It was really good and really frustrating as always.
Echo that.
Perfect.
I've got a
Old man's
question.
was
You've scheduled tonight's call at the same time as the release of Tim Atkins' report. I don't suppose you've had a whisper as to how your range have scored?
Yes, I know most scores.
Any in particular you care to share with us?
Am I allowed to tell you now what his started? He started at 7 o'clock, didn't
Yeah,
he?
he's gone live at 7, so it's
Yeah.
well.
So I probably can. So not all of them are that relevant to what we've got in stock at the moment, because Tim Atkins normally he tastes what they haven't released yet in South Africa. So
we're looking at next year's stock.
But the biggest score within the range was Stark Conde Oude Nectar, £59.99. 2018, Tim rated, got a 97-point score, as did 2017, which we do have in stock at the moment, and which also got a 97-point score from Greg Sherwood recently, which is worth noting because I know Greg well, and he says that Tim sometimes, not all the time, gets a bit overexcited and scores wines higher than Greg would. So for Greg to score a wine the same as Tim probably means that it is definitely a 97-point wine, and there is no room for argument within that. Colemont, our MCC Method Cap Classique sparkling producer, based in Franschhoek, the only purpose-built sparkling wine producer in South Africa, only purpose-built sparkling wine seller in South Africa. Their Absolute Zero, which has 7 years on lease, got 96 points. We've got that in stock at £59.99. Things that aren't available yet, Natterfilet Cinso from Stellenbosch 2020, got 95 points.
It's just the
It's not finished. Grayson has joined the call.
Hey.
So other wines that are available now, but not what that we import directly, Bushclough Epilogue 2019, that's in stock, 98 points, £59.99. And their Montague Patats Fontaine Chenin Blanc from a region called Montague, which is more commonly known for producing grapes made for sweet wine, 95 points, that's 34 quid. Uvamira didn't submit anything because they haven't released any new vintages since last year's report, so they didn't think there was any point. I would have argued against that and said they probably got better in the last year, so you should have entered them again. What else is there? Spionkup, I don't know. I didn't get any of their scores prior to release, so I'm excited to find out what they got. Done Natterfilet. So the Stellenbosch Cinso was the highest scoring. Stark Conde, I could probably pull it up. Let's go live. Go live. I think the field blend 2020, which is a Roussanne dominant, Roussanne Chenin Blanc, Vidalia Viognier got 94. Start Condé Stellenbosch Cabernet got 94. 2018 vintage, which we've got in stock at the moment. That's 24 quid. So 94 point Stellenbosch Cabernet, 24 quid. That's quite nice. Like that. Let's see what else Native Filet got. Okay. Now my emails are not cooperating at the moment. Right, we've got 10 minutes to the blind faith reveal. So let's sign off. Let's if you want to know all the Tim Atkins scores, you can buy his report rather than getting them from me for free. Probably going to get sued in the morning. Robbie, you're going to get countersued.
No, I will not. I think that's why John asked you. He knew you couldn't resist. So that was his best way of getting the scores.
Oh, there we go. Well, if everyone buys lots of those high-scoring wines from me, particularly the Epilogue 98 points from Bush Club at 60 quid a bottle, then I can afford my legal defence.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, massive thanks all. Thanks, Daniel, for putting it together. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Great to see you.
Robbie.
Your help, as always, Robbie. And see you in about
That's right.
9 minutes.
Oh, okay. Catch you in a bit. Cheers, chaps. Bye.